One of the challenges I think we face, and this was most evident in the 2010-2011 Canterbury earthquakes, is prior to those there had actually been many decades in New Zealand since a damaging earthquake. So in the 1980s there was the Edgecombe earthquake, but since then there'd basically been no significant events that were more than just a nuisance. And so while there'd been storytelling through the generations, a lot of that social knowledge had been lost to some extent. We've obviously just had a very busy decade from an earthquake perspective in New Zealand, and I think now the awareness of the importance for earthquake resilience has arisen, but it's somewhat inevitable that we may go back into a quiet patch. And so I think the challenge for us as professionals and for New Zealand as a community is to try and maintain that momentum that we've developed over the last 10 years, because it is a long-term game. We can't really fix this problem in a year or two. We really need small but consistent investment over the next decades. There are many events to try and foster a sense of earthquake resilience in New Zealand. For example, there's the annual activities such as the Shakeout program, where one day a year we mock the occurrence of a significant earthquake, and everyone participates in an earthquake drill, getting under your desk and protecting yourself. And they're really just a sense to try and bring people into the conversation, particularly young New Zealanders who maybe haven't experienced a significant earthquake before, and also as a conversation starter to use that to then think about, well, what building are we in, and how are we deciding how we make society safe from earthquakes. We also do targeted outreach and communication efforts to try and focus on particular groups. So some examples are tsunami outreach work in the Chatham Islands, and then also Remokos Walk is one of the projects that we've undertaken. Remokos Walk is a bilingual book in both English and Māori that's focused on understanding Indigenous aspects towards earthquake resilience and the historical lessons learned, and it's focused on the early childhood and primary school levels. The teacher will read that to the students, and then after they finish reading the book, they'll then go outside and undertake the drill. In particular, for example, after feeling long and strong earthquake shaking, then moving to higher ground to make sure that they avoid any potential tsunami in coastal areas. Every conversation that we have with people will be different, and we're trying to bring the relevance of earthquakes to their local context. So whether they're a business owner and they're focused on the economic viability of their business, whether they're a homeowner and they're focused on how safe their home is and their family inside that home. We also have a large number of immigrants in New Zealand that are coming from countries that are earthquake prone or non-earthquake prone. So I think it's really about focusing on the relevance of earthquakes to the individual or group that you're talking to, and finding an efficient way to make them understand whether it's relevant to them or not. We've seen that New Zealand is very resilient in the aftermath of the Canterbury earthquakes and the Kaikōura earthquakes, and it's really therefore in the physical elements of resilience that we can additionally make huge gains. We do see at the moment very large levels of physical damage, and those levels of physical damage have a huge social consequence. But also it's important to keep in mind that the negative impacts from that physical damage are felt the most in lower socioeconomic areas. So actually by increased investment in physical infrastructure resilience, we actually improve New Zealand's socioeconomic setting as well.